Hello, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pat.
And today, Pat and I are going to be talking about News Watch. We've got a couple of news stories that have been in the news recently. One is kind of about science. It involves a baby born with DNA from 3 different parents. And then we've also got a story about Penghu saying no to casinos.
That's right. Now, the first story is quite an interesting one. I may have not mentioned this on air, but I used to be a biochemist. I did biochemistry at university, and we sort of looked at this sort of thing, genetic diseases and ways to get around them. So I'm looking forward to reading through that one, and I'm kind of interested to see why Penghu said no to casinos. Most places that get offered a casino would say yes.
Absolutely. You can bring in extra money and have fun at the same time, but for some reason, the good people of Penghu said no. So we'll find out what this is all about. Let's get to it, everybody. Let's read through the entire contents of our news stories for today, and we'll come right back.
Baby born with DNA from 3 parents. In what some are calling a revolutionary event in medical science, the first baby with DNA from 3 parents has been born. The boy, who is now 10 months old, was conceived using a controversial fertility treatment. The special procedure was developed to help people who carry genes for rare, fatal diseases. The boy's parents had the procedure done in Mexico, since it is not yet approved in the US. The mother of the baby went to Dr. John Jiang, the doctor who performed the procedure, because she carried the gene for Lee syndrome, a disorder that had already caused her to suffer 4 miscarriages, as well as the deaths of 2 of her children. The procedure involves taking the nucleus from one of the mother's eggs, putting it in a donor egg, and then fertilizing that egg with the father's sperm. Scientists believe that many more families could be helped by the procedure in the future, as thousands of children are born every year with diseases that could be avoided by using the treatment.
Penghu says no to casinos for a second time. Residents of Penghu voted against the development of a local gambling industry in the second referendum on the issue last October. About 40% of eligible voters cast a ballot, with 6,210 voting in favor of the proposal and 26,598 voting against. The first referendum was held in September 2009, when 17,359 voted against the proposition. Many residents said that gambling wasn't the only way that Penghu could continue to develop, and some politicians have said that even if the referendum had passed, legislation concerning actual casino development wouldn't have. Chen Meng, one of the people pushing for the legalization of gambling in the county, said that in order for Penghu to prosper, it needs outside help, especially from the central government. Gambling is not legal in Taiwan proper, but a special piece of legislation added to the Offshore Islands Development Act in January 2009 allows outlying islands to establish tourist casinos if their residents agree to it. The county's magistrate Chen Guangfu is now calling for an amendment to the act and seeking other ways to promote local industries.
Okay, so we're going to start with the first of our news stories, and this baby born with DNA from 3 parents. Now, this is a pretty cool idea. Normally, you get the DNA from your mum and your dad. Here, we have a 3rd set of DNA, and people are calling this a revolutionary event. Something that is revolutionary means there are big changes, and the changes will continue to happen. So the way that things are done possibly will change forever. It's kind of opening up a new way of doing things or a new way of looking at things. So it could be a new technology is a revolutionary thing. It just goes, wow, now we're going to do it this way. Like the invention of cars or planes or the internet. They were all revolutionary things in technology.
Yes, and this has to do with some kind of event in medical science. The first baby with DNA from 3 parents has been born. Most of us have DNA from 2 parents, right?
That's right. We get, as I said, the mothers and the fathers together. So having a third set of DNA is quite an interesting one. So this boy is now 10 months old. Okay, so that's kind of good because that means it's successful enough so that he survives being born. You know, he's grown up almost through the first year of life. But he was conceived using a controversial fertility treatment. Got a few words to look at in the first sentence, and the first one is conceive. When we use conceive here, we're basically talking about when a mother and a father, or a mother and father-to-be, rather, do what is necessary to have a baby. We kind of talk about eggs and sperm later, but it basically means the mother's egg is fertilized by the father's sperm. The 2 DNAs kind of mix and create one single new life that starts to appear. So when we use conceive, we're talking about the very first stage of having a baby.
Indeed, and we've also got the word controversial here, which means that a lot of people have different opinions about this thing. It gives rise to disagreement. Lots of things in society are controversial, like same-sex marriage, of course, is very controversial. Drugs and politics all introduce certain controversial issues that people get upset about and they fight about and they argue about these things. And also we've got the word fertility, and fertility just refers to the ability of being able to produce offspring, basically, fertility. So it has to do with people maybe having difficulty getting pregnant or having children, so this is a treatment that helps them out with that.
Exactly. And now this particular procedure was developed to help people who carry genes for rare fatal diseases. Now, a gene basically is like your body's computer code. Okay, a gene is a set of instructions on your DNA that produce a particular protein or something in your body that does a job, and the gene is the code for that. So here, the genes code fatal diseases. Maybe there's something wrong with those genes, and so instead of producing some useful stuff, they produce some kind of problem in the body. In this case, a fatal problem. Something that is fatal means it can kill you. Fatal is something that causes death. So a fatal car accident would mean that somebody died. A fatal air crash would mean a lot of people have died. And a fatal disease is one that you would die from.
Okay, you did say you studied biology before?
Biochemistry, yes.
Biochemistry, okay. I've always had trouble with DNA and genes. Like, what's the difference between the two?
Well, the DNA is basically it's the real name is deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, and it's this long stream of code in your body. And a single section of that is a gene, and that is a code for a particular protein.
Okay, so genes are part of DNA, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks a lot. That helps a lot. But in any case, yes, some people carry these kinds of genes in their DNA, which bring about these fatal diseases. Let's talk about the boy's parents now. The boy's parents had the procedure done in Mexico since it was not yet approved in the U.S., and it's not approved now. Things take a long time to be approved in the U.S., where I guess they're faster in Mexico. And, going down to Mexico for a medical procedure isn't such a bad thing. Mexico is pretty cool. They got great food and great scenery and great archaeological sites, but they probably didn't have time to check that stuff out because they needed to have this procedure done. Procedure's kind of like a medical operation.
That's right. Now, the mother of the baby went to Dr. John Chang, the doctor who performed the procedure. And this is the reason why she had to go down there to see him. She carried the gene for Lee syndrome. Okay, Lee syndrome is a kind of disease that attacks your mental and muscle abilities, and it usually results in a very early death because eventually you can't breathe. It attacks your muscles that allow you to breathe, so the babies can't breathe and they die. It is a kind of disorder. So a disorder is when there is something wrong with a part of the body and it's not working properly. We usually use the word disorder to talk about a problem that comes from within, maybe caused by your own genes or something in your own body going wrong, rather than being caused by an outside agent like a bacteria or a virus. So that's kind of how we can sometimes talk about the difference between a disease and a disorder.
Okay, very good. And disorder, another example would be ADD, attention deficit disorder. That's quite common these days. So, as you said, something that kind of comes from within and not from without in the form of bacteria or viruses and stuff like that. So, this is Lee syndrome. If you've got those genes, you're going to have some problems here. And this particular disorder had already caused her to suffer 4 miscarriages, as well as the deaths of 2 of her children. A miscarriage, of course, is when a woman is unable to carry a pregnancy to its full term. The fetus basically comes out of the womb for whatever reason because it's just not developed properly or the body just simply rejects it.
That's true. It's a very sad thing to happen to anyone. And so basically the mother has this gene and the babies get it, and because the disease or disorder affects the babies, they die either very young or before they're even born. So they have to do this procedure to get around it. The procedure involves taking the nucleus from one of the mother's eggs. So the nucleus is the center of a single cell. It's where the most of the DNA is held, all of the coding information for that cell. And it's in one of the mother's eggs, which is the kind of baby-making cells that mothers have. So you get the nucleus, the very center of the mother's egg, and you put it in a donor egg, so an egg belonging to another person from a donor, someone who has given their eggs. So this is a healthy egg. And then fertilizing that egg with the father's sperm. The sperm are the father's baby-making cells. So when you get a father's baby-making cell and a mother's baby-making cell, you get fertilization, or the production of a baby.
Okay, so this is the nucleus from the mother herself or from a different mother?
From the mother. Okay. Now, I checked this out. Not all DNA is in the nucleus. Each human cell has these little energy-producing things called mitochondria, which I'll spell mitochondria. You can Google them. And these mitochondria do contain some DNA, including the gene for Lee syndrome. So if you take the nucleus out and put it in a healthy egg, you don't take the bad DNA from the mitochondria. That's how it works.
Kind of like mixing and matching DNA from different eggs here.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. So you get the nucleus from one of the mother's eggs, you got a donor egg, and then you've got the fertilization from the father's sperm. So that's 3 people there together. And scientists believe that many more families could be helped by the procedure in the future, as thousands of children are born every year with diseases that could be avoided by using this particular treatment. So they could be helped by the procedure in the future. It is possible for them to get some kind of help as a result of what these scientists are discovering.
Okay, well, that's the end of our first news story. To explain a bit more and to look into that grammar, here's our Chinese teacher.Hi
everyone, my name is Jenny. 今天我们看的是第3单元。好，我们要来读新闻。今天的第一则新闻呢，谈的跟罕见疾病有关。那这里呢的标题告诉你 DNA 来自3个父母亲，这是怎么回事呢？好，这个新闻的内容正是有一个革命性的疗法，这让有生育问题的父母可以透过特别的手术，然后呢找到解决的方式。好，这里牵涉到的在第一句里面就告诉你，这是一个 revolutionary event， 换句话说是革命性事件。再来他就提到说，这一个小孩子现在其实已经10个月大了，然后呢他的父母亲所用的一种 controversial fertility treatment， controversial 就告诉你是非常有争议性的。怎么说它很有争议性？因为它是透过一个比较特别的方式来怀孕。不过我们要先看这个字 conceive， 这个动词平常我们说 conceive something 就是你想到什么。 可是他有时候呢，对妇女来说 conceive a child 那就表示说你受孕了，像这个地方就表示这个10个月大的孩子其实他当初是怎么样被母亲怀胎10月呢？好，那这里用的被动，但是 conceive 记得是表示 become pregnant。再来，我们往下读，下面呢就说到了这个特殊的手术方式不是在美国进行，而是这个父母呢他到了 Mexico， 到墨西哥去完成这一项手术。我们先看到这个动词的部分，完成这一项手术，他用到了 had the procedure done。 我们知道had 这个动词它基本上呢在这里看起来就是一个使役动词，那使役动词它的用法里头后面呢动词加受词，受词接补语，而这个补语的位置上在这里是一个被动的 done。 好，这是一个过去分词，当我们知道如果受词后面这个补语它的这个动作所描述的跟受词的关系是被动的关系，你就会用过去分词，这也就是为什么你看到的是 done。 好，再来我们再往下读，下面呢当然说到这基本上的原因，为什么要跑到别的国家去做呢？因为美国这样的手术在美国是不合法的。好，那他们找了一位张晋博士，然后呢来处理解决他的问题。那这边呢他找张晋博士主要是因为他有一种特别的基因，这叫来世症候群的基因。那后面就提到说这个基因呢其实让他遭受了4次流产，2个孩子死亡。好，那我们再往下读咯，下面又说到了这个手术的过程，它呢比较复杂的是要把母亲她其中一个卵子的细胞核放到捐赠者的卵子里面，然后呢再用父亲的精子让这颗卵子受精。
We're going to take a short break now, but please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, time for our second news story. Penghu says no to casinos for second time. So this isn't the first time they've said, no thanks, we don't want a casino. But what is a casino? Well, it is a building where people go to gamble for money. It's a place where gambling is permitted and people can play card games, dice games, other sorts of gambling games, mahjong for money, and it's where it all takes place. And they usually have hotel rooms and restaurants and bars and other things to keep people inside betting, gambling, spending money.
I've never been to a casino myself. I've been past them before. Have you been to a casino before?
Yeah, I've been to the biggest casino in the world.
Really?
Which is the Venetian in Macau.
All right.
So,
I was going to guess that.
If you want to go to one that's really close, it's only an hour's flight away. Of course, Las Vegas is one of the most famous places for having lots of casinos.
Or what is it, Montenegro or
yes, yeah,
not Montenegro.
Montenegro, Monte Carlo.
Monte Carlo is what I meant to say.
In Monaco, yeah.
Monaco.
All of these places have legal casinos, as does the UK.
Great.
It's legal to go there.
If you're into gambling, that would be good. But Penghu said, no, we don't want any casinos here, and they've said no for the second time. Let's find out what this is all about. The first paragraph says, residents, or people who live in Penghu, voted against the development of a local gambling industry in the second referendum on the issue last October. Gambling, of course, is when you try to get more money by playing various games, blackjack and poker and the roulette wheel and stuff like that. And this is a referendum, which is basically when all of the population votes on one particular issue. So they asked all the voters of Penghu, do you want casinos here or not? And most of them said, no, we don't.
That's right. It does say, however, that only 40% of eligible voters in Penghu cast a ballot. To cast a ballot just means to vote in a particular election or referendum, but only 40% of eligible voters did. If you're eligible to do something, it means you're allowed, you're permitted, you are qualified to do that thing. So it's saying out of all of these people who were allowed to vote on the issue, only 40% bothered. So the other 60% just didn't seem interested.
A lot of people ask me this, even though I have a permanent resident visa, can I still vote? And I say, well, no, I am not eligible to vote.
Neither am I. We are not citizens, so we are not eligible to vote. So in this ballot, 6,210 people voted in favor of or for the proposal and said, yes, we want gambling in casinos. But 26,598 people voted against and said, no, thank you.
And again, as you said, that's only 40% of the eligible voters. But, does that imply that if they all voted, then they would have voted in favor of it?
Probably not.
Probably not. But, 40% of the population thought it was an important enough issue to vote on, whereas the rest of them said, I've got better things to do than go down and cast my vote for that. Now, the first referendum was held about, 7 years ago or so, in 2009, when 17,359 voted against the proposition, which is less than now, but we still don't know how many people voted for it then and what percentage of the people voted, so we don't know if things have improved or not.
Yeah, it does seem a pretty emphatic no both times, though, saying no to this proposition, this suggestion, this proposal that they've had. Do you want gambling or not? Now, many residents said that gambling wasn't the only way that Penghu could continue to develop. So they're saying, we don't want to earn money through gambling and stuff like that. We want better ways. We want maybe tourism. We want a few more special local industries. We just don't want gambling because, to be fair, there are bad things and gangsters and that kind of stuff involved with gambling. It's always been the way throughout history.
Sure.
So if you don't want that, then you probably need to say no to casinos.
I think they'd probably do pretty good with tourism there. They should probably develop that more. There's plenty of things to see and do there. And yes, indeed, someone here said that, or at least some politicians have said that even if the referendum had passed, legislation concerning actual casino development wouldn't have. So even if all the people said, yes, we can have gambling here, the legislature there or the local council would have said, no, we're not going to allow that in. Legislation here just refers to laws that are enacted by some kind of government body.
Yeah, a referendum is not a law. It just shows people's opinion. So if they said yes, they would have tried to make a law, but they think it would have failed. Now, Chen Meng, one of the people pushing for the legalization of gambling in the county, that's Penghu County, said that in order for Penghu to prosper, it needs outside help, especially from the central government. So here we're all talking about the legalization of gambling, making it legal. So legalization just means making something that wasn't legal, legal, like gay marriage, like certain substances could be made legal or illegal at different times. And here we're talking about gambling and making it legal to gamble. But this guy says, basically, in order for Penghu to prosper, to make a lot of money, to develop so that lots of people can have jobs and, send their kids to good schools and so on, they need help. They need outside help. They need other people to kind of lend them a hand and help them to develop.
In order to prosper, to make money, basically. And they need help from the central government, but as we said, there probably are other ways for them to bring some money in from outside. And gambling is not legal in Taiwan proper, which means it's illegal, but a special piece of legislation added to the Offshore Islands Development Act in January 2009 allows outlying islands to establish tourist casinos if their residents agree to it. So, of course, we've got the offshore islands, which include Penghu and Jinmen and Mazu and
Green Island,
Lanyu,
Orchid Island,
etc. Maybe even Geelong Island and the one off of Yilan there.
Xiaoliu Chao.
There
maybe.
You go. That might...
down south.
I guess it's up to them to decide whether they want to have casinos or not.
That's right. Taiwan proper just means the general mainland, but obviously that may not include some of these offshore islands who kind of have sometimes their own rules just that kind of deal with them specifically, like this Offshore Islands Development Act. Okay, so basically this law says if the people there want it, then we can try and build it and make gambling legal just in those places, mainly to attract tourists. Obviously, it didn't pass. So now the county's magistrate, that's the person who is responsible for the law and deals with court cases and laws and runs courts and so on. His name is Chen Guangfu. He is now calling for an amendment to this act, to the Offshore Islands Development Act, and seeking other ways to promote local industries. So to call for something is to basically say publicly, we should do this thing. We need to do this thing should happen. And an amendment means a change in some way, a change in this case to the law, to the act, something different in it. It's not said what kind of amendment he wants. Maybe he says, let's just cut this gambling part out so we don't keep having to have votes on it. Or maybe he's saying amend it and make it other ways for us to improve local industries, get more stuff like that in this act instead of casinos.
Absolutely. Well, I think, as I said before, Penghu can do pretty well with tourism, and I think that this actually inspires me to head to Penghu again. I was there many years ago. I'd like to go there again to see how the place has changed.
Yeah, it'd be good.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation. Here comes our Chinese teacher one more time.
今天看新闻的第二则呢，它是谈我们本土的国内在澎湖这次的公投事件。好，澎湖是台湾的离岛，那这里到底可不可以从事合法的赌博运动呢？可以开赌场吗？好，那我们提到说要公投，当然要投票，所以这次里头大概当地有 40% 的符合资格的选民去投票这个动作 cast a ballot。 那谈到投票结果是怎么样，后面有一个 with， 注意到了 with 这个介系词，它其实就表示后面这个状况这个情形之下，所以我们要注意到它的句型上有一个 with， 然后受词，然后后面呢会有一个所谓的分词当补语，这是常见的。那数词是6210位，也就是说这个结果有6210票是投赞成票，然后当然后面有26000多票是反对票。接下来我们要继续往下看，在下面这一段里头就说到，其实呢住在澎湖这边的人，他们觉得不一定是要靠博弈，也就是赌博发展这种赌场，然后来推动他的经济发展。而后面他说有些政治人物呢，他们也表示，就算假设这次公投过了，那其实呢有关于赌场它实际的这种法案法律方面可能也不会过。好，那这句话说到即使这个过，那然后怎么样，这里牵涉到的是假设语气，注意到了吗？ Even if the referendum had passed， 我们看到了这个 if 的子句，就知道说这本来就是一个条件句，而后面的 had passed 你用一个过去完成式。为什么用过去完成式？我们知道公投已经投过了，那结果呢事实上是已经宣布没过关，但是要是他过的话呢，怎么样？所以跟过去的事实有所相反。那这样子的假设语气，你的动词部分就要特别注意，在 if 的条件句里面会用 had 加 PP。好，再往下最后这一段里面呢，我们来看这边呢，他提到说其实 gambling is not legal in Taiwan proper。 好，这个比较大家少用的就是Taiwan 为什么后面加一个 proper？ 其实 proper 这个字它摆在一个地名后头，就表示说就只有很窄义的只有谈台湾本身而不谈其他地方，包括像澎湖是不包括在内的。好，我们今天的解释就到这里结束。
Okay, everybody, we're out of time for today, but thanks for listening to our Newswatch article. For English Digest, I'm Pat.
And I'm Tom.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.